Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host. And I'd like to ask you, how well versed are you about the Tree of Life? I think you've heard of it before. Actually, I spoke to someone the other day who never heard of it. But then again, it's a big world, a lot of different teachings. So, in order for us to really know about the Tree of Life even better, is an author of an incredible book that I'm really loving called Kabbalah of Prayer. And a segment of it is about the Tree of Life. And I'm so happy to interview the author and the expert about this, and she really is, Shulamit Elson. Shulamit, welcome to Energy Stew.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. I look
Well,
forward.
I'm so glad that I could interview you. Can you raise your volume a little bit? This feels a
Got it
little.
up to the max. Maybe I
All
have
right. Well, all
a
right. So
bit
we'll
closer to me, do you think? No. Okay.
maybe we'll work with it. So anyway, sorry to digress, but I'm so excited about your book. In general, it has so many different facets of Kabbalah knowledge and wisdom, and you are an activator of that because you actually work with tones and with the alphabet and its sacredness, and it's so beautiful to see. But let's come back to the Tree of Life. Where can we start?
Well, I think we should start at the beginning.
Well,
Beginnings are so important. I mean, we know
yes,
that from our own lives, how much we're formed in the first few years of our life
right.
actually gives
But
shape to
what do you call the beginning?
creation, the creation story.
All right. And how does that relate to the Tree of Life?
Well, the story is that Adam and Eve, most people know this, were in the Garden of Eden, where they didn't need anything because everything was supplied, and they were told never to eat from the tree of life. I'm sorry, never to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But they were tempted and they ate from it. And they were cast out of the garden, and the tree of life in the story was guarded by scary angels and a revolving sword so that you couldn't come near, you couldn't approach. But the story doesn't say that you can't, it only says that it's very, very difficult. For the people who can make their way, they can come back to the wholeness, to the connection, to the peace, to the centeredness that the tree of life offers. So the tree of life offers eternal life, but not in the sense of angels with wings, but in the sense of living in the present reality in fullness.
And it's a map of how to do that, right?
So the mystics, I mean, that's just the story, right?
Uh-huh.
And of course, it's our story because we leave the protections of our childhood to go find our fortune in the world and to gain knowledge and skill and whatever. And we leave that protectedness of early childhood. And then most of us struggle to find our way back to some sense of wholeness and connection and overcome internal divisions, find inner peace and so on, find meaning. So anyway, the mystics looked at the tree and tried to decipher what it was that it meant. And drawing upon various scripture in the Torah, in the Bible, they came up with this system of 10 emanations. In other words, the story, when I say the creation story, the story is that when God created the world, he or she or it sent energy down to create it. And the force of the energy was so great that it broke apart the vessels that it was contained in. And the shards fell to the earth. And those shards actually contain evil.
Containing what?
Evil.
Yeah, we've experienced that in this world.
Yes. So, but at the same time, there is this map of how to ascend the tree of life. What are we composed of as people? What is the world composed of? What are the upper worlds composed of? You know, this is all a mystery. Science unravels a great deal, and often it echoes what the mystics knew from ancient times. For example, in the Zohar, it says that the world was created through vibration. This is something that they discuss now in physics.
And this is why you enjoy toning so much.
Well, yeah, that's sort of a journey. But I do want to say that the tree of life, is actually a map of us. It shows us what the various elements that compose us are on an esoteric level.
I think of it as the foundation.
It is a description. And a description, if you know how to use it, that is very, very, very helpful. The first thing you discover, of course, is that you're a mass of contradictions, and we all know this. And I think we berate ourselves for being so conflicted, but in fact, we're composed of that. We have judgment and we have unconditional love. We have both of those. Judgment can be really harsh, as we know. It can be discernment, right, like telling the difference between right and wrong, and being able to tell when there's a bad person coming toward you as opposed to something that's safe, etc. But it also can be something that I just lost my thread.
Okay. Well, it's really the tools to manage life with, the different aspects of
Right.
of how to manage against evil, for instance, and how to bring good, how to live in light and love, and how to process. It's the foundation of how to process ourselves every day.
So there's two ways. I agree with you. There's the mundane level. How can you be happier? How can you live a more authentic and decent life? How can you find meaning? How can you solve problems that come up? How can you deal with all the internal and external ambivalences, all the forces that come at you? But then there's another level, because you can use it to ascend. You can use it to become much more conscious, much more aware, much more enlightened.
I agree.
And that brings you to a different level of happiness, deeper.
It helps create a personal discernment on how to handle ourselves in life and what's important and what's not important.
So when you talk about discernment, that's another way to look at judgment. You discern the difference. Judgment has a difficulty of becoming too harsh, as we all know, and can be brutal or warlike, etc. But within us, we also have unconditional love. And if we temper those two, if we mingle them, you get compassion.
Well, the structure of the tree of life shows balance. And what you're talking about with judgment is a sephira of the 10 sephirot, the sephira that is described in one of the shoulders, because there's a balance with each shoulder. The tree of life has everything kind of meets something that helps balance it. And so judgment is how we use this sephirah at the left shoulder of judgment, because the right shoulder is unconditional love. That doesn't have enough judgment. So we need the balance to it.
Exactly. And I think everything in the world seeks balance. I think the climate, for example, that changes we're seeing now is an attempt by nature or whatever to restore the balance of the planet. And we're constantly seeking balance. We marry people who, I mean, if we're fortunate, we marry people who can kind of shore up some of the areas in which we are less developed. And people also, our partners also rely on that in us. We're constantly seeking balance.
So we need to actually understand how the tree of life shows up in different people in the way it's balanced or unbalanced in their lives. And there are so many ways. I mean, we could go through it. I'd love to look at the different balances in the tree of life to see what we should be aware of. You know, because right at the top, well, the very top is Keter, which you describe beautifully in your book, and let's call it heavenly. And so that's the highest point that we want to connect with. But then there's two sephira, also known as spheres, at the side of each head, and one is called understanding, and the other is called wisdom. So let's talk about how they balance each other.
Well, you know, for example, let's take an instance which is familiar to many of us. We have a family member that's dead set on a course which appears to be very destructive. Let's say a teenager, whatever, who's racing cars or skateboarding, or, you know, something that you as a parent feel is very dangerous and perhaps is objectively very dangerous. And you understand that, and you understand what the dangers are. And so you explain this to your child or to your relative. If you can, you know, persist in this behavior, it's liable to turn out very bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all the facts on your side. You have all the understanding that there can be. You may have all your other relatives in agreement with you. You may have the literature in agreement with you. You may have the doctors in agreement with you, etc. But you can't get the kid to listen.
Because the balance isn't there.
Well, because you have to understand this is where wisdom comes in.
Right.
I mean, wisdom is like, and I'm not saying this is easy in practical life, but, you know, wisdom is like trying to plant a seed. Plant a seed in the wintertime in the Northeast, it's just going to roll off the surface of the hard earth and never reach fruition, right? But if you wait until you know, like prepare the ground and you know, wait for the ground to soften a little bit, and then you put the seed in and it's spring, then it's likely you could get a tree or a bush or a flower or whatever. So wisdom is about seeing the truth of something and knowing when the timing is right, because it is possible to influence people, but you have to influence them when the timing is right. Otherwise, it's like this seed in the wintertime.
Well, I think the world right now is lacking that balance, and there's not enough wisdom to go along with whatever bright ideas people think they have. They don't necessarily apply wisdom to it.
Well, wisdom is also about waiting, you know.
Yeah, that's true too.
And also seeing far-reaching consequences of things that you're, you know, consequences that we
But
don't.
it's wisdom. That's the wisdom, is to see the big picture and understand it, you know, to grasp it. So the mind, you know, the left and right, we could even call it left brain, right brain, has different ways of pushing us forward, and we would like it to be more balanced among people, at least people who are influential, to have more wisdom.
I think that during the course of life, it's the people who've lived longer who develop the capacity for wisdom. You know, when you're full of piss and vinegar, when you're coming up, or when you're having a good run in your life, you know, you begin to think that it's going to last forever and that you're the king of the hill or whatever.
Yeah.
And reverses, which come to all of us, teach us that we're not immune to the forces of nature or politics or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And you have to walk a different way. But those attributes, I'm sorry.
Age is a good teaching tool for some of us.
Oh, get beaten up. I think that those two attributes are essential for each other, and yet they kind of remain largely apart, you know, that we treat things with understanding, and it's hard to get to treat it wisely at the same time because we're filled with our analytical ability. So one of the things that I'm noticing in the world right now is, well, there's a lot of very bright people talking, on the internet and so forth, and in magazines and print media, and very bright, and still nobody can handle what's happening right now. Nobody can figure out where we're going. Nobody knows what to do. So
Right.
either there's henny penny, the sky is falling, but then there's not really good wisdom about how to negotiate it.
Well, and you also said that wisdom includes patience.
Yes, a lot of patience.
Yeah, right now.
As a person who is innately impatient, that was my greatest lesson. But anyway, these two qualities exist, and wisdom is access. The saying is that wisdom, compassion is the highest form of wisdom. When you can get to the
Yes.
point where you see yourself as another human being suffering, maybe differently, maybe from different causes and whatever,
Empathy.
that you're sharing this common fate of being,
Right.
not knowing where you're coming from and not knowing where you're going, between birth and death or whatever. I mean, life is an art form, and the tree of life gives you a roadmap to
Right.
really come to understand and accept. You're not one, you are one person, but you hold all these manifold worlds.
Well, let's look at another sephira that I think contains patience, and that's Tiferet.
Yeah, Tiferet is beauty, wholeness, connection.
Right. And beauty needs patience.
Well, beauty needs, there's a lot of things beauty needs.
Yes.
But if you think of yourself around the Thanksgiving table with all your relatives, let's say, and maybe even some of your teachers and your friends all sitting around, and they're all giving you advice about a particular thing that you're trying to do. I don't know, buy a house, change a job, move to another country, whatever. And they all have different opinions, So one is saying, oh, I would never leave the security of your present situation. It's ridiculous. And another person says, yeah, grab it. This is your chance. You'll never have a chance like this again. And I mean, there's all these conflicting.
And actually those are energies that I think appear in the sephirot that are in our hips, that have to do with how to move forward, or the energy of motion towards in the tree of life, it's called victory. To achieve victory takes vision, and yet we need to understand the process. You can't just head directly towards your goal without the wisdom to how to get there. And those two sephira at the hip level, which I call, and I think you do too, the legs of God, because they move us forward.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
You kind of faded out there for a minute. I can hear you now.
Okay.
I want to tell you a little story.
Sure.
Years ago, I had a very bad case of sciatica. And it was so bad I had to be, my husband had to pull me by my legs out of the bed and fold my legs over so that I could get up. And it went on for about a week. And at the end of the week, I said, what's going on here? I don't get it. My right leg wants to move forward, but my left leg is refusing. And that insight revealed to me, which I guess might have been obvious, but I didn't see it. I was in conflict about something I had decided to do. I wasn't all in.
Right. Your legs didn't know which way to go.
Yeah. So when I realized that, the sciatica went away.
That's so brilliant. The insight of that is so great, that understanding the tree of life gives us self-knowledge that we can process and heal from. And I love that about using the tree of life. And so these balances are so important to find out among ourselves and each other. Coming back to the shoulders and the arms of God, I think of it as The right arm, being unconditional love, supports our heart and brings more loving energy to our hearts. And the left arm is judgment, and it's the arm that says, not so fast. We don't know. We haven't judged enough to know if this is correct to bring to our hearts. So I think of the arms of God as the arms that help manage our hearts better.
So all of this is gives great insight into our motivation and an understanding of how we react. And, you're right. You can't just function on unconditional love alone. I mean, that doesn't come to a good end. I've seen it.
Right. We need discernment. We need judgment.
And discernment comes from the mingling of these two attributes, So I just want to talk a little bit about the sound, because
Sure.
my journey really, my subtitle of my book is Sacred Sounds and the Soul's Journey. My journey and what I teach is based on sound meditation. So in the 13th century, whatever, there were books written about how specific vowel sounds can be affiliated with the different sefirot on the Tree of Life. And I used that. It was just a very simple thing. It's like, this is the sound for Tiferet, this is the sound for wisdom, this is the sound for judgment, etc. But I was given the gift of the sound, which I then correlated back to the Tree of Life. So using the sound as a tool to study energy of that particular sephira, unlock the energy of that particular sephira, maybe even connect. See, I discovered, I don't know if I was the first person who ever discovered it, but I discovered that you could connect the sephirot with your voice. So you could bring the energy of one to another.
Right. And also, does each sephirah have its own particular tone?
It does.
So then if you're making tones and you're trying to make tones of each sephirah, there might be some sephirah you can't make a good tone for, and you realize that you have to work on that.
Exactly. It's a diagnostic as well as a cure. It basically says, if you're stuck, for example, I work with people who have had a lot of, emotional pain or whatever, and you ask them to make a sound to their heart, and they just can't do it. It comes out all cracked. And I mean, this is not opera, right? I mean, you don't have to have any particular talent, but they really struggle, and they struggle because there's pain there. And why would you want to go to a place of pain? I mean, it's just natural, right? To step back, to not press a point of pain. So, it's basically, you do it anyway to kind of soothe yourself, and then it can gradually open up. It's like, but it's a diagnostic.
Yeah, I love that. That's so fascinating that everything connects, in beautiful ways that we can learn about ourselves and each other. And even when we interact with others, we might hear in their voices sounds that we can relate to something missing in their energy field that we become, let's say, knowledgeable about. At least we sense that there's something here I have to either be afraid of, or I can be confident in somebody I'm just getting to know, for instance.
Yeah, well, you have your antenna out all the time. We make decisions all the time about people that we interact with.
Right.
Based on what we loosely called our gut,
Well, our unconscious is measuring everything all the time. And our conscious mind doesn't realize what we know inside of ourselves that hasn't been presented to our conscious mind yet.
But there are ways to deal with issues that are, sort of common issues. There was a man who came to consult with me once, had terrible headaches. And every time he talked to his mother, well, that wasn't a great mystery. Every time he talked to his mother, he had this terrible headache. And I basically showed him a way to hold his mother, not in his head with arguments and so forth, but to bring his mother to his heart.
Right.
Heart is very capacious, The heart has a lot of, the heart is made to be broken and is broken all the time, right? But it has a lot of capacity. If you don't shut down, it has a lot of capacity. And you can absorb, not necessarily fix things, but you can come to acceptance and love about things, especially about things that you can't fix, you know.
Right. And that's where wisdom comes in.
Well, it's all correlated, right? All these different aspects of ourselves, we're still one person. And if you look at the tree of life, you've also got a female side and a masculine side. You've got the intellectual, you've got the emotional, and you've got the physical, and you've got the spiritual. These are all aspects of ourselves. And you could, for example, use, I don't know if you're familiar with dot, with
Very familiar with it. And, it's an interface. And it's very important because it houses, as it's known as knowledge, because it houses, it's the interface that is knowledgeable because of that.
So it's gnosis, really, it's knowing.
Yes.
Knowing, but it can be used as a platform, like almost like a diving board, to get into the higher levels of consciousness and to connect to the other realms.
Right, because it's the pathway up to the head.
The pathway up to the head. If you're using sound, you use the bony structure of your head as the resonating chamber. I mean, you have to have a resonating chamber.
Oh, I love that. Well, we have to talk more. We're really at the end of the show, and this is so fascinating. I can't
Oh my
wait
God,
to.
I didn't realize how fast the time went. I
Yeah,
thought
well, we had a lot to talk about.
Okay.
So your book is Kabbalah of Prayer. How can people find out more?
There's you can go to Amazon for the book, but I'm starting to sell it on my own site. So if you visit my site, which is shulamitelson.com, you can find it there. I also I have a weekly meditation that's free on Sundays at noon, which you can find out about. So the best thing to do would be to write me if you want at I guess I have to spell it, shulamitelson@gmail.com, SHULAMITELSON@gmail.com. And in case you want any more information, I'm also on YouTube. I have several, my Sunday presentations are on YouTube at Medisounds, MEDISOUNDS. So I guess there's a lot of information there, but
This is great. It's been so wonderful talking with you, and I am looking forward to continuing.
Why don't you hold up the book so people can see the picture?
Well, actually, this is an audio show, but
okay.
Eventually it'll be on YouTube.
Okay,
So
great.
it's
I didn't realize it was only an audio show, but yes, it has been terrific, and we didn't even scratch the very
exactly. We have so much to talk about.
Initial surface, but I just want to end by saying that you can use, and people do. I mean, Christians and Jews. This is not always only a Jewish idea, as a way to improve your life, but also to elevate your consciousness and connect to the other worlds. And this is what we need now.
Yep.
In this time.
This is great. So I'm so glad to know you and to have you as a guest on Energy Stew. And I'm excited for our next show at some point soon.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And yes, I look forward to talking to you soon. And have a wonderful vacation.
Yeah, I'm on vacation. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay. All the best to you.